This is State versus Barisone, indictment 1912-00999-I. We're continuing with the trial. May I have appearances?
Good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court, Christopher Sheldon for the state.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alexander Bennett on behalf of the state.
Edward Belinkus on behalf of Mr. Barison. And Christopher Dining on behalf of Mr. Barison.
All right. The record will reflect Mr. Barisone is present in court, dressed in proper trial attire. All right, we're ready to proceed with your witness?
We are, Judge. Can I just put one thing on the record?
Sure.
For this morning? I anticipate calling Vanessa Medrano-Cortez today, who is the DCP&P worker. Your Honor had signed a protective order on January 31st, 2020, releasing certain DCP&P records to the parties. And in that order, it indicates on page 2, no party or counsel for any party shall make reference to the substance of the within DCP&P records in the public domain without prior leave of the court. Judge, we did mark those, I believe it's 15 pages, as S-174. I don't intend to introduce that as an exhibit, but I may refer to it with the witness if she needed her recollection refreshed or something of that nature.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, let's call the jurors.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. We're going to continue with the trial in State versus Barisone. We're going to continue with the direct examination of Dr. Ruth Cox. You want to call in your witness?
Yes, Your Honor, if we could call Dr. Ruth Cox.
Doctor?
Good morning, Doctor.
Well, good morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. We need to re-swear you since we broke during the day, so left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. My clerk will administer the oath.
Do you swear in the presence of Almighty God that the testimony you give to this court regarding this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Ruth Cox, last name C-O-X.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Please continue, Mr. Shellhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Cox.
Good morning.
I think we left off yesterday just before I was going to ask you some questions about August 7th, but I did just want to follow up on two things we discussed yesterday. The first is with respect to the gun, S-177 in evidence. And if you remember yesterday, was turned the other way, I asked you to show the jury where the magazine release button was, and you couldn't see it because the gun was turned around. So if you could just stand up and just point out to the jury where that button is.
It's black.
So it's that button that's right next to where the trigger guard is. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. It was just turned around yesterday,
Yes, sir.
so I
I
wanted to make
understand.
sure.
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'd also like permission to move S-401 into evidence. It's a photo. And publish it to the jury.
Mr. Belinkus, have you seen S-401?
I don't have an objection to that. It's not on the list though, at this point, no,
It was added to the list after it was
Yes,
printed, Judge.
I saw that. All right, no objection, S-401 will be admitted into evidence.
Doctor, we talked yesterday about the night that Michael Barisone asked you for the gun. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And I think you had told the jury that you were near or around the stall where Dee Dee was.
Yes, sir.
I'm showing you what's been marked as S-401. Do you recognize what S-401 is a picture of?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can you tell the jury what that's a picture of?
Yes, this is the stall that I was spending the nights at. Michael had concern about my horse's safety, and he had asked me to spend the nights there in front of his stall.
So that's the stall where Dee Dee was housed?
Was housed.
What are those areas just to the left of the stall?
Those are two wash stalls.
And is that horse that we see in the picture Dee Dee?
I can't tell you whether that's him or not unless you could show me his face. I can't tell you. It's kind of the right color, but it looks like a horse that's been clipped, but I couldn't. There were many, many horses there.
All right, Doctor, I want to draw your attention to August 7th now, Wednesday, August 7th. Do you remember what you were doing that morning?
Yes, sir. The long table that's there in the club room, I was at the end of that table that is closest to the front of the building. There were two windows there with my laptop doing work.
And at some point, do you remember if you were told or you became aware that there was someone from Child Protection at the farm?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember approximately what time of day that was?
My best guess would be sometime midday, noontime, noon to 1, something like that. I could not give you an exact time.
You were engrossed in your work?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember if that caseworker was a man or a woman?
There was a woman.
Do you recall how you became aware that that caseworker was at the farm?
Yes, sir, I do. Mary Haskins came over and asked me if I would be willing to talk to her. She had some questions about Michael and the children, and she asked me if I would come and answer her questions, and I agreed to do that.
And do you recall where you spoke with the caseworker?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury?
Yes, sir. So, in the pictures, I'm assuming they've seen pictures of the club room?
Yes.
Okay. So where the pool table was, there's a door to the left of that pool table. That is a corridor between the club room into Michael's work garage where he had his cars. And there's doors on either side of that. So we went, because there were people milling around, so we went into that area and we went to the farthest corner that you could go in that area, and we stood there and talked.
Besides you and the caseworker, was anyone else present?
Mary Haskins was there.
Were the doors open or closed?
They were closed.
Now, do you know where the defendant was at the time you went to speak with the caseworker?
No, sir, I do not.
Did you see at any point if or when he left the area of the barn?
I can tell you that because of where I was sitting at the end of that table, with the window there, I saw his truck. He had two silver trucks. I saw his truck go down the driveway, down the hill toward the house. I assumed it was him
Objection.
driving that car.
What's it, hold on, Doctor.
I
What's the
don't have
basis?
any assumptions, Judge.
All right. Clarify your questions,
I will, Judge. You
or
didn't see,
lay a foundation.
you didn't see who was driving that truck.
No, sir, I did not.
Was that before or after you went into the hallway with the caseworker?
Oh, that would be after.
So after you were talking to the caseworker, you went back to the table, and that's when you saw the truck?
Yes, sir.
Did you see the defendant running around the clubhouse or the stable that afternoon?
I saw him around the area, yes.
Was he yelling or screaming or carrying on anything of that nature?
No, sir.
Now, at some point that afternoon on August 7th, did you become aware that police were at the property?
Yes, sir.
And without getting into specifics of what someone may or may not have told you, how did you generally become aware of that?
Mary Haskins' father was there, and I got some information from him that concerned me that something had happened down at the house.
And what did you do as a result of that?
I got in my truck and drove down there
When you say down there, you mean to the house?
to the house.
Could you see the house from when you got into your truck at the parking lot and started to drive?
Yes, sir, I could.
You could see the house from the parking lot?
What, you said once I got in my truck and started to drive down the hill? Yes, sir.
Okay, so after you got to the top of the hill, you started to drive, you could see the house?
Yes, I could.
How close did you get to the area of the house?
Not very close, because there were many, many police cars down there. There were many, many policemen. And I got probably, thinking about yards, I probably got 15 yards. So if the house is here, the driveway's here, I probably got about 15 yards up the driveway and was stopped. Am I being clear with that, answering your question?
I think so. So you didn't get all the way to the driveway
No, sir.
into the back of it?
Oh, no, sir. There's no way you could have gotten in there.
Did you see Michael Barison in the area?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall, can you describe how whether he was standing, sitting, kneeling, or something else?
At one point, he was kneeling. There was a policeman standing behind him. His arms were behind him like that. And then at another time, he was sitting next to the wheels of, I don't know if it was a trailer or a car that was there in the parking lot.
No, I think you said yesterday that at some time after the police got to the scene and after the investigation began, that you were advised or you learned that your firearm had been recovered by the police?
Yes.
Were you asked that night on August 7th, 2019 about your firearm?
Yes, sir.
And were you shown a picture of a black and pink 9mm Ruger by a detective?
Yes, sir.
What did you think when the police officer showed you that picture?
My heart sank. I didn't hardly think anything, my heart sank.
And had you seen that gun again since you gave it to Michael Barisone in the stable a couple of nights earlier?
I had not seen that gun again until you showed it to me in the courtroom. Did I understand your question
I
correct?
think so. Do you still have any ongoing business with either Mary Haskins Gray?
No, I do not.
How about, do you have any ongoing business with the defendant?
No, sir, I do not.
Judge, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
Ms. Cox, you were charged with a criminal offense, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you agreed to testify as part of your plea agreement, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the prosecutor just asked you questions concerning you being shown a picture of your gun on the night of the incident, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's the question where you said your heart stopped, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you told the police at that time that you weren't sure if it was your gun, correct?
Yes, sir.
But deep down in your heart, you knew it was your gun, correct?
I strongly thought it was my gun, yes, sir.
Was there any doubt in your mind that the gun that they were showing you at that time was your gun?
Well, there was a little bit of hope that it wasn't my gun until I knew that it was the same serial number as my gun.
Now, you've been coming to the farm for approximately 5 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're coming up this last time, and that was what, Friday before the Wednesday incident, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it a fact that you were asked to come up by Michael Barison?
No, sir, that's not correct.
Who asked you to come up?
I was not directly asked to come up. I had some exchanges with MH, Mary Haskins, and she told me what was going on up there. And I had plans to come a week or so later. And as she and I talked about it, we decided that perhaps it was best that I come on up that weekend.
You basically came up out of the goodness of your heart to help them, correct?
That is absolutely correct, sir.
And that is after you were told by Mary Haskins exactly what was going on, at least according to her, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were told, can I assume, some pretty horrible things?
Yes, sir.
Now, you were there for, what, 4 or 5 days before the incident?
Yes, sir.
And would you agree with me that the entire situation was toxic?
Yes, sir.
Were you there, and did you personally see the police come numerous times to the property?
Yes, sir, I did.
And were you present during any of those times?
Yes, sir, I was.
And at any point during those times, did you hear Michael Barison tell the police that he was...
Objection.
But, Mr. Blinkus, sustained.
Judge, again...
No, not again. It's the same ruling I had before. It's hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right, so you were present when the police arrived,
Yes, sir.
and you saw the police talking to Michael Barison, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you present when Mary Haskins sent her child away?
Yes, sir, I was.
And was that emotional for her?
Yes, sir.
Do you know when that occurred, ma'am? What day after you arrived? You said you arrived on a Friday?
Sir, I haven't the faintest idea.
All right, but,
I'm sorry.
all right, but it was
would have
during the
been-
time from
Oh, yes.
the second to when the incident
It
happened.
would have been between when I got there on Friday, probably over that weekend, because I had intended just to come for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And because things continued to get worse and worse and more tense, and Michael asked me to stay.
All right,
And so I stayed. But this is a young child
all right,
who did not need to be in that environment and that situation at all.
all right.
And so MH made arrangements for him to leave and to go to her mother.
All right, very good, thank you.
Now, were you present when the town officials came to the property and kicked everyone out of the stable area.
Yes, sir, I was.
And from that point on, was Michael Barisone sleeping outside on the porch on a mattress?
Yes, sir.
Now, was there ever a time while you were there where you were with Michael Barisone and you saw Lauren Kanarek at night in the woods flashing a flashlight on and off?
I was there when Michael and I were on the front porch and saw someone out in the field with a flashlight, putting it on and off and on and off. Whether it was her or not, I cannot tell you.
Did you ever see Lauren Kanarek and Rob Goodwin come to the stable area and after hours and turn all the lights on and start playing the music loudly?
Yes, sir, I absolutely did. That was why I was asked by Michael to spend the nights in front of our horse, Don Devone. We called him affectionately DD, because she and he would come at odd hours during the night and do exactly as you said. Turn all the lights on in the stable, turn on the music, which for the horses, they should have quiet and peace at night and not be disturbed because they are very busy during the day. And that was the routine that was asked to be done at the stables, is after 8 o'clock that there be nobody up there in the stables.
And is it safe to say, based on your observations, that Lauren Kanarek refused to abide by those rules?
Absolutely, sir, she did.
Now, let's talk about this horse, Dee. You indicated that Michael was concerned for the safety of that horse on direct, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you also concerned?
Yes, sir, I was concerned as well.
How much is Dee worth? Approximately.
Are you asking me how much he was worth then or how much he might be worth now?
I would assume that
What, now?
then.
Then, yes, not now, just
Yeah.
then at the
Yeah.
time.
I would have said he was worth 200.
Excuse me.
I would have said he was worth probably around $200,000.
With the potential to be worth a lot more, correct?
Yes, sir, and that's why I asked the question, do you want me to tell you something now?
Now, this conversation that you've testified to with regards to the gun, that was in front of Dee Dee's stall, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, isn't Lauren Kanarek's locker right nearby there?
I couldn't tell you, sir. I have no idea about that. I don't know where her locker was.
Did you receive any information with regards to the possible recording of private conversations in the stable area?
Don't answer that question. I think it calls for a hearsay answer, doesn't it, Mr. Belinkus?
Judge, I'll
Unless she has personal knowledge herself somehow, but other than that, it would be a hearsay answer.
Were you concerned about your private conversations being recorded at any time while you were there?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea where any recordings were placed in the stable area?
No, sir, I do not.
Now, this conversation with regards to your gun, it was in your vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at the time of that conversation, would you agree with me that things were going crazy at the stable or on the property?
Yes.
Did Michael Barisone ever discuss with you a concern of people going into your truck?
Judge, I'm going to object.
Yeah, Mr. Palinkas, those are all hearsay answers. They're all objectionable.
Judge, could I be heard?
All right, my ruling stands, Mr. Palinkas.
That conversation with regards to the gun occurred right in front of DD's stall, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you indicated that you were sleeping there.
Yes, sir.
Was that a common thing for you to do when you visited the farm?
Sleep in front of my horse's stable?
Yeah.
No, sir, that was not common. I was asked to do that by Michael because of his concern for the horse.
On any previous occasion that you have come to the farm, have you ever slept in front of your horse's stall?
No, sir.
Now, with regards to that horse, was there an incident with you and Lauren Kanarek regarding the feeding of that horse?
Yes, sir.
During this time, did Lauren
Judge,
Kanarek,
I'm not sure what the relevance of this line of questioning is.
All right, sorry for that delay, ladies and gentlemen. There are a number of legal issues that come up during testimony, as you have seen, that have to be resolved outside of your presence. Again, I'll try to keep them at a minimum, but it is important to get that decision right. All right, the objection's overruled. You can ask the question, Mr. Palinkas.
Dr. Cox, you indicated that Lauren Kanarek was coming to the stable after hours, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was against the rules, so to speak, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on one of those occasions, when all this stuff is going on, did she attempt to feed your animal?
Yes, sir.
Was that after you told her not to feed your animal?
Yes, sir. It was after she had fed him, and I asked her to please do not feed him. And she did it again. She was feeding him some sugar, lumps of sugar.
And were you concerned, in light of everything that was going on, her feeding your horse?
Yes, sir. I was very concerned.
And was she videotaping this? Or were you trying to videotape this?
Yes, I did videotape it.
And why did you videotape it?
Because of my concern for the horse and what was going on with the horse.
Did you communicate that to Mr. Barisone?
Did I tell him that this had happened?
Yes.
Yes, sir, I did.
When did that happen?
When did I tell him that?
Yes, if you recall.
It would have been the next time that I saw him.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you did hear some testimony regarding some alleged conduct of Ms. Kanarek. That conduct was admitted only for a limited purpose. It's not bad character evidence against Ms. Kanarek. That's not the purpose of the testimony. The relevance of the testimony is only whether Mr. Barisone learned about it and whether or not it affected his state of mind in any way. All right, that's the only purpose the court allowed that testimony in court today. It's not meant to be testimony or evidence about the bad character of Ms. Kanarek. All right, very good. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Palinkas.
Now, you testified on direct with regards to a meeting with an attorney that you were present at, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I don't want you to say what was discussed, but as a result of that, we're, strike that. After that meeting with the attorney, did Lauren Kanarek come to the stable area later that day?
I do not know how to answer that question because there were several meetings with his attorney.
Okay.
So you'd have to, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know what day you're
Okay,
talking
Let
about.
me rephrase it.
Okay.
This sport is a dangerous sport, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
And it's common for people to sign releases in case they're injured.
Okay, I know what day you're talking about now, if that's what you're talking about.
Okay. So you had a lawyer with a meeting, you had a meeting with the lawyer
Yes.
on that day, correct?
Yes?
And did Lauren Kanarek come to the stables later that day?
Yes, sir, she did.
And was there a discussion with regards to her signing a release?
Yes, sir,
And was Rob Goodwin there?
he was.
And they basically refused, correct?
Yes, sir.
Michael Barison was there, correct?
Yes, sir. I was
And
standing
was-
beside him.
Was Michael Barison calm when he was talking to them?
Absolutely.
And can you describe how Robert Goodwin was?
He was a bit excitable about that. You want me to continue to
Yes.
explain that? He obviously did not like the situation. He made some threatening remarks to Michael. He also threatened me.
Robert Goodwin threatened you?
Yes, sir.
What did he say to you?
He had already made some.
John, do you object? It's hearsay.
It's a
Well-
threat that was made to Barison.
Well, you didn't ask about that.
She just said that.
No, but you didn't, your follow-up question was not about that. Right, that's why it's objectionable. With all due respect to Dr. Cox, her state of mind is not an issue in this case. Mr. Barisone's is. So if you want to rephrase and ask about any threat that was made to Mr. Barisone, that may be permissible.
Understood, Judge. Dr. Cox, did Robert Goodwin threaten Michael Barison on that day?
Yes.
What specifically did he tell him?
I do not remember the specific words, but it was around, he was not going to let Michael determine what was going on with him and his girlfriend's horses.
Dr. Cox, I'm going to show you a copy of your statement in a second.
She answered the question.
I'm going to show her her transcript and ask if it refreshes her recollection as to the exact words.
She didn't say she needed her memory refreshed. She just answered the question.
Judge, if I may, I'd like to give her the transcript, have her look at her statement. She says she doesn't remember the exact words. I want to show her statement, ask her if it refreshes her recollection with regards to the exact words.
I'll allow it, with regard to the exact words. What's the exhibit number?
It appears to be 500-5A.
Dr. Cox, I'm going to show you 500-5A. Do you remember giving a statement on August 7th to the Morris County Prosecutor's Office?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you please turn to page 31,
Okay,
lines 3 through
Okay.
5? And ask you if that refreshes your recollection with regards to what the exact words concerning the threat to Michael was.
Just read it to yourself, Doctor.
I have read it, sir.
Does that refresh your recollection as to
That's exactly it, sir.
what is exactly it?
You want me to read what this says?
I want you to testify to what the exact threat was to Michael Barison, if that refreshed your recollection.
Okay. You
Judge,
know,
I don't think she should read it. If she's saying that her recollection has been refreshed to the exact words, then she can do it from memory. That was the whole point of this exercise.
Does that refresh your memory without reading it? It's to refresh your memory, Dr. Cox, that
yes, it
transcript.
refreshes my
All
memory.
right, now just testify if you can without reading specifically what's in your prior statement.
Okay. He said, again, he said to Michael, with you doing the kind of stuff that you're doing, he said,
So the record is clear, Judge. The witness is reading from the transcript.
All right.
It hasn't been removed from the front.
I understand. I'll allow it in this one instance.
he said, I will take you down.
Take that from the doctor. Thank you. Now, you were present when the town came and kicked everyone out of the stable, correct?
Yes, sir, I was.
Now, were you asked to go to the farmhouse at any point?
Yes, sir, I was.
And why were you asked to go to the farmhouse as opposed to Michael?
Well, hold on a sec.
Just yes or no, Judge?
No,
I'm asking.
But still, we don't know anything about who told her that or why she was told. It calls for a hearsay answer.
I'll rephrase it. On the day the town came, did you go to the farmhouse?
With somebody, yes.
And did you go inside?
Yes, sir.
And were you attacked by Kanarek's dog?
Yes, sir.
What's the relevance of that?
The dog attacked Michael Barison.
Oh, I haven't heard that. Wait a second. First of all, I haven't heard that yet. While it may have some relevance to the defendant, what is the relevance to the dog unfortunately biting Dr. Cox or attacking the doctor? There's no relevance to that here.
The police officer, Judge, testified that the dog is,
But, Mr. Belinkus, you're missing the point. I don't see how that is remotely relevant.
Judge, I'll move on. Now, when you gave Michael Barisone that gun, isn't it a fact that both magazines had bullets in them?
Not to my knowledge, that's not a fact.
If I can approach again, Judge, I'm going to show you, again, your transcript, D505A, which was a statement you gave the day of the incident. Can you turn to page 23? Line 25. Can you read that to yourself and tell me whether it refreshes your recollection as to whether or not there were bullets in the magazines, plural?
Yes, it does. It refreshes my memory.
Were there bullets in the magazine?
I'm hesitant with how to answer that question if you're asking me if both magazines were full of bullets. Is that what you're asking me?
Right, you don't recall one way or the other, do you?
No, sir, I don't.
But would you agree with me that on the 7th, you indicated that they were, correct?
On the 7th, what my answer would be, that I know that one, am I answering this
Yeah.
all right? Okay.
Go ahead.
You looked at me, I thought maybe
No,
I should be
no, I'm
quiet.
just,
Okay.
no. No, I would tell you if I wanted you to be quiet,
You will tell me, okay, well, I
yes.
just didn't want to do anything wrong here. So I would tell you that my recall is that one magazine was full, the other magazine probably had several bullets in it. I cannot tell you that both magazines were full of bullets, and that has been my hesitancy to answer your question. I don't know if I've made it worse or better in what I've said.
Okay, but based on what you say, would you agree with me, you're not 100% sure as to how many bullets were in each magazine?
That is an absolute correct statement, sir.
Maybe a first for me.
Okay, well, I'm glad I was part of it. Okay?
Now, you just have a moment, Judge.
Yep.
Could be done. On the day of the incident, were you asked to stand guard and watch things prior to DCPP Dyfus coming?
Ask me that question again?
Were you asked to come and stand guard or watch over things before Dyfus came?
Who is that?
That's the Child Protective Service.
No, sir, I was not asked that.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
No, thank you, Judge.
All right, Dr. Cox, you all finished?
I'm
Thank
finished
you.
and I may go?
You may go.
I'm excused.
Yes, you are. Thank you. Please don't discuss the case with anyone, though.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Very good.
Thank you so very
All
much.
right. Nice seeing you again.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Judge, the state calls Vanessa Medrano-Cortez.
Yes, hi, ma'am. Good morning. Just, if you can remain standing. for
Oh,
one
sorry.
moment.
Okay.
I need you to be sworn, so place your left, you can put your jacket down on the chair for a moment. Thank you. Left hand on the Bible. Please raise your right hand and listen to my court clerk who will administer the oath.
Do you swear in the presence of Almighty God that the testimony you give to this court regarding this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Vanessa Medrano-Cortez, Medrano-Cortez.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You may have a seat.
Thank you.
Please keep your voice up nice and loud
Okay.
in response to questions. If you don't understand the question, it's okay to indicate that you don't understand. I'll have counsel rephrase the question to something that you do understand.
Okay.
All right, very good. Mr. Schoenhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Medrano-Cortez.
Good morning.
Can you please reintroduce yourself to the jury and tell them how old you are?
Yes, I am Vanessa Medrano-Cortez, and I'm currently 29 years old.
Where do you work?
For the Division of Child Protection and Permanency
Approximately how long have you worked for that agency?
for about 6 years and a half.
Can you tell the jury briefly what the responsibilities of the division are?
So I am in an intake role, and in the intake unit where we receive reports of child abuse or neglect.
And were you in that same position in August of 2019?
Yes.
What are your general day-to-day responsibilities as a member of the intake unit?
So I receive reports with allegations of abuse or neglect, and my job is to respond to the house address that is on the report to investigate if there is actual abuse or neglect to a child.
Were you in the same or substantially the same role in August of 2019?
Yes.
How are some of the ways that the division can be notified or referred of a case like you just talked about?
An individual could call the SCR, which is the State Central Registry, and report concerns or an incident of abuse or neglect to a child.
Are there other entities that are mandatory reporting agencies or mandatory reporters?
Yes, it could be police departments, teachers, medical staff, anybody.
As a caseworker, how are you assigned your cases?
We go based on a rotation list of about 15 people, and whoever's next receives the next case.
What determines the response time for when you would respond to investigate?
So there are two types of referrals. One is a Child Protective Services referral. The other one is child welfare assessment. The Child Protective Services referral actually has allegations of abuse or neglect to be investigated. And with the Child Welfare Services referral, we assess for services for the family in order to bring stability or any help they may need as well.
With respect to a Child Protective Services for abuse or neglect, are there different categories of response time?
Yes, there is a 24-hour response and also an immediate response.
In your experience, does the referral typically include an alleged perpetrator?
On the Child Protective Services referral, yes.
And what is an alleged perpetrator?
Someone who is being accused of the act, whether it is abuse or neglect towards a child.
When you're assigned a case, can you tell the jury what the steps you take are to begin your investigation?
Yes, so I called a reporter to find out more information about the allegations of abuse or neglect, and then I proceed to the home unannounced and interview everyone privately.
Do you review the screening summary?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what the screening summary is?
The screening summary is a report where it gives the details of the incident that happened with concerns of abuse or neglect.
Now, you indicated that there are two types of referrals, abuse or neglect. What are some examples of abuse?
So with abuse, some examples could be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, among those.
And with respect to neglect, what are some examples of neglect?
With neglect, it could be substance abuse, inadequate supervision, not enough food in the home, things.
Now, do you recall being assigned a referral on Tuesday, August 6th regarding the address of 411 West Mill Road in Washington Township?
Yes.
Do you know why you were assigned that referral?
I was next on rotation and it was a Child Protective Services referral with allegations of neglect.
And I'll ask you some questions about the referral. Do you recall who the alleged perpetrator was?
Yes, Mary Gorganis.
Do you recall whether it involved child abuse or neglect?
It involved.
Objection, Judge. I'm not going to be able to get into the specifics.
All right, objections overruled with my limiting instructions. Go ahead, Mr. Shellhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Medrano-Cortez, I was asking you some questions about the general nature of the referral. And I think you were indicating that that referral involved complaint of neglect?
Yes,
And was the response time there listed for 24 hours?
yes,
Are you aware that the reporter of that was Safe Sport?
yes.
Now, based on the information that you learned from reviewing the referral and the screening summary, what was your response plan?
I went out unannounced to the home and took a state vehicle with me. And my plan was to interview everyone privately.
Did you also know the name from the referral of Michael Barison?
Yes, he was listed as a household member.
Do you recall if an individual named Lauren Kanarek was listed at all in that report?
I don't recall.
Now, on August 7, 2019, did you arrive to 411 West Mill in the minivan?
Yes,
And you recall whether you were by yourself or with anyone else?
I was by myself.
Were you made aware of any safety concerns?
No,
If you were, would that have changed your response?
yes,
Were you there looking specifically for Michael Barison?
no.
When you arrived at the address, do you remember approximately or the general area where you went on the property?
I went towards the barn, all the way down the driveway, I will call it, and parked on the left side of the barn. It's in the front.
Now, I'm gonna, Judge, if I could have permission to show 3 exhibits that are already in evidence, 301, 302, and 312.
Yes. They may be shown to the witness up on the screen.
Ms. Medrano-Cortez, approximately what time of day was it when you arrived to the
It was in
property?
the afternoon, maybe 1:30.
So I recognize that S312 is a picture in the dark, but aside from that, what do you recognize S312 to be?
The barn, the main entrance of the barn.
And is that the same barn that you recall going on August 7th, 2019?
Yes,
When you arrived to the property and you were in this area, did you park in the parking lot?
yes,
Do you see the area where you parked on this picture?
yes, on the left side by the black car.
When you got, did you get out of your car?
No, I parked and a male came towards me. I didn't know it was Michael Barison then, but I left the van and that's when he introduced himself.
Did you tell him who you were?
Yes,
And what else did you tell him?
very vaguely that I had a referral from Child Protective Services.
Did you get into any specifics about the referral?
No,
Why not?
because I discussed the details of the referral individually and privately.
And is that your common practice and your habit?
Yes,
When you told him who you were and where you were there from, what did you do next?
he called Miss Garganis. She came outside of the door and she allowed me to go inside the office of the barn.
Do you recall did you go in that door that we see on S312?
Yes,
And do you recall which direction you went when you went inside the door?
towards the left.
And I'm going to show you a picture that's entered into evidence as S301. What do you recognize S301 to be?
The office.
And does that appear to be the same, or substantially the same condition that the office was in when you met with Ms. Gerganis?
Mostly, yes, except the chair positions.
And just so the record is clear, are you aware of whether Ms. Gerganis had another last name or went by another last name at times?
I wasn't aware when I arrived. No.
And are you aware now that she also has the last name of Gray?
Yes,
Now, S301 is a picture of the office that you indicated that you met with, and I'll call her Miss Gray because that's how we've been referring to her, so I apologize if that's somewhat confusing. That's the office that you met with Miss Gray in?
yes.
And when you met with her in that office, was anyone else present with you?
No,
Was the door open or closed?
the door was closed.
And do you recall if you were sitting, standing, or something else?
I was sitting.
How about Miss Gray?
Miss Gray was sitting towards the window.
Now, just without getting into any of the details now, did you tell her any more specific details about why you were there?
Yes, I discussed the details of the report with her.
Do you remember approximately how long you spoke with her?
For about 30 minutes.
During the course of time that you were meeting with Miss Gray in this office with the door closed, did anyone interrupt you?
Yes, Mr. Barison came to the office about 3 times.
What did you tell him the first time that he interrupted you?
That I needed to speak with her privately first.
What did you tell him the second time that he interrupted?
So it's hearsay.
How is it hearsay?
What she told Michael Barison?
It's not hearsay.
I'll withdraw my objection.
I told him that, I'm sorry,
I'll ask you a question again.
yes,
So my question was, what did you tell him the second time that he interrupted you?
he asked me if we were almost done and I said that weren't done yet, a couple more minutes.
On the third time that he interrupted you, did he say anything to you and Ms. Gray?
He said that he needed the office. I had told him that I was almost done with releases. The person always needs to sign releases. So yeah, he said he needed the office.
And after he told you and Ms. Gray that he needed the office, did you stay there or leave?
We moved to the next room. We left.
Had you ever met Mr. Barisone before that day?
No.
Do you recall what his appearance or demeanor was?
He appeared to be confused, somewhat upset.
Did you see him running around at all?
No, I was in the office at all times.
When you were in the room or had any interaction with him, did you hear him yelling?
No.
Do you recall whether there was a safe inside of that office?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked and entered into evidence as S302. Do you see the safe in this picture?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury where it is?
On the right side of the picture, of the wall.
Did you see whether or not anyone went into that safe?
Ms. Gray retrieved documents from the safe to show me.
And do you recall who opened the safe?
No.
Directing your attention back to the third time that the defendant interrupted you and Ms. Gray, do you recall anything specific about what he did when he interrupted on that third occasion?
As we were leaving the office, he grabbed her arm and kissed her.
He grabbed Ms. Gray's arm and kissed her.
Yes, kissed her on the cheek as I was in the middle of both of them.
Did you see the defendant again?
No.
Were you still at the property of 411 West Mill Road when the police arrived?
Yes.
Do you have any personal or direct knowledge of what happened elsewhere on the property that day?
No.
Just two more questions, Ms. Medrano-Cortez. Based on what happened, was the case transferred to another caseworker?
Yes.
And did that caseworker complete any follow-up or investigation and prepare any reports?
Yes.
Judge, no further questions. Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
No questions.
All right, you may step down, ma'am, thanks.
Thank you.
Judge, I know it's probably a little early for our morning break, but I do want to check and make sure the next witness is here, and I expect that that witness will certainly take us through the rest of the morning.
All right, this is a little, you want to break now?
If we could break now, then I think we could hopefully push through until lunchtime.
All right, we'll break now, 20 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll work through until lunch with the next witness. Thank you. All right, we'll take 20 minutes.